Now, Executive Suites with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Always glad to have you with us on your weekend to hear a little bit about what's going on in the business world and its related fields in southern New England. Later on in the show, we're going to hear about an interesting new project that's happening to help local governments figure out how to manage and sell their real estate that they've taken control of. But first, let's talk about law school, something that's been in the news a lot. And we have with us the dean of the newest law school on the block locally, the UMass School of Law in Dartmouth, Mary Lu Bilek, excuse me. Mary Jo is so familiar to me. Mary Lu Bilek, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. UMass School of Law, brand new, basically, right? Especially for a school. Tell the story. How did it come about?
So in 2010, the Southern New England School of Law gave all of its assets to the University of Massachusetts because it wanted to create a fully accredited public law school in Massachusetts. And they saw donating their assets to the University of Massachusetts, taking on that brand and taking on all that the University of Massachusetts could bring to the law school as the way to do it.
Now, is UMass Law a full-fledged member of UMass, just like Amherst, just like the rest of the college at Dartmouth?
Yes, we are, and so we're part of the system. We're the system's only law school, but we're located at UMass Dartmouth here on the South Coast. So
the old New England School of Law, if I recall, it either wasn't accredited or they were working on their accreditation or something before they decided to give the assets to you. Where does it stand with that? Are there still accreditation issues in the pipeline?
Right. So SNESL was state accredited, which meant that our graduates
SNESL, Southern New England School of Law.
Right, exactly. Could sit for the bar exam and become lawyers in Massachusetts and a few other states. Being ABA accredited, which is what we're shooting for now, means that our graduates can sit for the bar in any state in the United States.
ABA being the American
Bar Association. So that's a pretty long path to full accreditation as a matter of time. And we don't expect that we'll earn full accreditation until 2017. But we achieved a significant point in that path when we became provisionally accredited. So as a provisionally accredited school, our students have all the same rights as students from fully accredited schools. So anybody who comes to the UMass School of Law while we're provisionally accredited can sit for the bar in any state in the country.
What SNESL, I just love the acronym being pronounced out loud. What was I hate to say it, but the problem for SNESL? Why, obviously BC wasn't looking to sell its law school or give its assets up to someone, but that was the position they found themselves in. What do you think, what had led them to that point that this was the best path?
Well, I think they needed some more resources and they needed some better branding, because what I discovered when I got there, it was a damn good law school. So the faculty at SNESL were people who had practiced law, who were committed to making new lawyers, like making a better next generation of professionals, and who loved to teach. And there's no dean in the country that inherited a better opportunity than that.
So they were a good. You didn't come in and find a disaster of a place or some like hackneyed place or something like that. You had a good thing to build off of. So law schools facing big challenges nationwide. We keep seeing the headlines of enrollment being down after years where it seemed there was no cap. Felt like half my class in college was going to go to law school. It seemed like, or at least considered it. So first of all, why do you think that is happening? And then second, is it affecting you at UMass?
Okay, so enrollment is down. It's that applications are down to the lowest they've been since 1970. And since 1970, 20 or 25 new law schools have sprouted up around the country. So it really is a situation that law schools are finding quite a challenge. I think enrollment is down because law schools have started to charge more and more. So students, when they graduate, have a very high debt load. And then the question is, can they find a job that gives them an income that permits them to pay back that debt load? And the answer for many students over the past 10 years, and maybe even longer, at the non-elite schools, has been no.
No, flat out, you would say flat out no.
Flat out no, flat out no. When a law school charges $48,000 a year, and students borrow against that, and imagine if you already had undergraduate debt.
Rarely financial scholarships usually for law students.
Exactly. So the other thing that's happened, and I think the media has created this problem, is that law firms big law firms, the elite law firms, right? They've stopped hiring.
Big white shoe, New York, Boston, Washington type firms.
So they've stopped hiring as many new lawyers as they used to hire. But you know what? 75% of the lawyers in the country don't do that work. right? So what's been reported on is what's happening at the big firms, not what's happening to the vast number of lawyers who are out there. I think the other reason why applications are down is that for many years, although this is changing, we're at a really exciting time in legal education. For many years, law schools kind of lost the part of their mission that was about training students to be lawyers.
Which sounds funny to people, right?
Well, it does, but it was more focused on the academics of the law. So when people graduated from law schools, I like to say they were really damn good law students. But they really didn't know how to interview a client or how to counsel a client or how much they should charge or what a retainer looks like. Many of them hadn't seen complaints and other litigation documents, nor had they been exposed to many of the things that lawyers do that don't happen in court, that happen with clients so that clients don't have to get to the point where they're going to court. So yes, this is a challenging time in terms of law school admissions. We've been lucky, our applications have been up consistently. I think that's because of the UMass brand. I hope a little of it is because people understand that we're not your grandfather's law school, and that we're doing some things new and right.
So people want to see that, want to be a part of that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from the Dean of the UMass School of Law about what they're doing down in Dartmouth, the newest law school on the block. And then later, we're going to talk to the co-founder of OpportunitySpace, which is launching here in Rhode Island. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Later on in the show, we're going to hear from the co-founder of OpportunitySpace, which is helping local governments figure out how to manage and sell their real estate assets, which is really interesting. But right now, we're talking to the Dean of UMass Law School down in Dartmouth, new kid on the block in legal education locally, Mary Lu Bilek. So I want to ask you, how do you see the goals of the UMass School of Law different from the other, as I say, many law schools we have in Massachusetts and one in Rhode Island?
So I think in two big ways. First, we're the public law school, and as a public law school, I think we have an obligation to be different. So we are committed to, one, access to legal education, right? We have to be the place where people who otherwise couldn't afford law school or who don't see law school as accessible can find a way to get to law school.
So that's not just about money, it sounds like.
It's not just about money. It is about money. We only cost $24,000 a year for a full-time student. It's about having a flexible part-time program, because not everybody can quit their job and stop their lives for 3 years to go to law school. But it's also about creating relationships with the public schools, public universities in the area, doing some education for undergrads about why be a lawyer and what to do if you want to be a lawyer. So there's that root of accessibility that I think is really important. The other thing is we have to help be a steward of justice for the state. We have to take on public interest issues. We have to create public service lawyers. So, you know, what I say is that there's nobody who's going to graduate from the University of Massachusetts School of Law who doesn't graduate understanding that every lawyer, no matter what they do when they graduate, needs to have justice as their core value.
So you're right off the Rhode Island border. Obviously, we have a lot of Rhode Island viewers who watch this show. Do you see Rhode Island as a part of the mission for UMass School of Law?
Well, if you live in Providence and you want to go to law school part-time, we're a straight shot down 195 and a lot closer than the other part-time programs. Our part-time program also is 2 evenings a week and Saturday, which creates much better educational opportunity for part-time students. There's at least 1 day a week when they're in school when they're not exhausted.
Right.
And it also allows them to do other things, to get some academic support if they need to it, to have a meeting with a faculty member if they want to, and to participate in law review and all the other activities that go on.
One of the things you're doing already down there that's gotten some attention is this new so-called law incubator, and it's called Justice Bridge. Obviously, people won't know probably what a law incubator is. What is that, Justice Bridge?
Okay, so I just have to start quickly by saying that in Massachusetts, 85% of the people who are threatened to lose their homes to foreclosure, their apartments to eviction, or their children in custody battles don't have lawyers.
No one to represent them in court.
No one to represent them at all. On the other hand, you've got lawyers who are graduating from law school who don't have jobs. And the real problem is that we don't have an economically viable way to deliver legal services to modest means people, right? Lawyers are afraid they can't make enough money. Clients are afraid it's going to cost too much.
And a policy problem there too, right? Where I feel like the Mass Lawyers Association is always fighting with the state about how much they pay for people taking on indigent clients.
Right, exactly. So what we've got now is an incubator where we take our recent graduates, we give them mentors. We give them training. We give them brick and mortar office space. Right now we're in Boston and we're going to open a branch down on the South Coast in January. And we give them cases. So new lawyers spend like 80% of their time trying to get clients. And what do they say? Well, I'm just starting and I'm sure I'm going to be good, right? So we give them those cases and we give them the support they need to do them well. They charge modest fees, an average of $50 an hour. We only serve clients who are too rich to afford free legal services, but other lawyers aren't taking their cases because they're too poor to afford real legal fees, right? And we're going to use the incubator not only as, well, it helps our lawyers get work, it helps them be good lawyers, and it helps these clients get lawyers, but as a laboratory to try to create an economically viable model for the delivery of legal services. So we're looking at how technology will help, and we're looking at whether flat fees are something that would appeal to clients who are terrified that the hourly ticker will just keep mounting up. We're giving our lawyers enough experience so that they can actually get clients on their own when they leave the incubator, which they will in about 18 months.
Get them out of the nest.
Right. And so as a law school, one of the things we're really excited about is the other thing that's going to happen here is we're going to discover what new lawyers actually need to know, what skills they need to have in order to start practice. And we're going to use that to recreate our curriculum as we need to make sure that our students are graduating prepared to practice.
You know, when we were talking about having you on the show, one thing you said to me is, I'd love to talk about, you disagree with the common refrain that there are too many lawyers. You hear that all the time. Too many lawyers are all getting churned out and we have no need for it. You disagree, right?
So I totally disagree. The statistics I just gave you showed you that lots of people end up in court without lawyers on life-threatening situations, right? Because in this country, we don't have a right to a lawyer in civil cases, only in criminal cases. So you're going to lose your house. I think you need a lawyer, right? And maybe you needed one when you got that first letter from the mortgage company. Maybe we need to create a relationship with people, both in terms of how much they have to pay and where we are and how connected we are to them, but so that they bring that letter to us when it first comes. Or when the health insurance company says, I'm not paying that bill. Right? Lawyers can be a big help in those kinds of situations before things get to the point where you're going to lose your job or you're going to lose your home or you're going to lose your kid. And there aren't enough lawyers doing that. So we intend to prepare lawyers to do that and to look at how we can create a system so that more lawyers can make a living doing that.
So what is your advice if there's a young person watching today thinking, maybe I will go to law school, I'm considering it, they've heard the scare stories we were talking about earlier. What's your advice?
Well, so here, there's a statistic that 80% of the people who go to law school because they want to help people. Those people should not be deterred because that's where we need lawyers right now. The other piece of advice I would give to them is, maybe work for a couple years. Mean age of our students is 29. They have 2 years or 4 years of work under their belt, and they come as adults to law school. Lawyers need to have judgment. They need to be professional. Being a little older helps. And to look at the economics of it. So the National Jurist named us one of the top 50 law schools, 60 law schools in the country for practical training. Make sure that you're going to get what you want from the law school that you go to. Not all law schools are made for every applicant, so do your research. Talk to the lawyers out there in your community and see what they recommend. All
right, that's all the time we have for this segment, but advice right from the law school dean. You heard it, future students, so now you know what to do. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here. Mary Lou, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with the co-founder of OpportunitySpace, which helps local governments figure out to market their land. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and now I'm pleased to be joined by Cristina Garmendia. She's Chief Customer Officer and co-founder of OpportunitySpace, and it's an interesting project. We're going to dive into how it works. So, Cristina, just to get people started, what is OpportunitySpace?
So OpportunitySpace is an online information platform and marketplace for undervalued real estate. And what people, if they've heard of us before, they know we market government-owned real estate. So city, state, and quasi-governmental owned entities all have real estate that is for sale.
Why do they have land that's for sale? How would they end up? People might think, well, are you selling City Hall? But no, it's not like that. What do they have on their books?
Thanks for asking. So there's a couple of different kinds of properties that governments end up having. Sometimes it's surplus. So something that happens regularly is fire stations need to be close to where the people are and populations move around. So every now and then a fire station has to be rebuilt in a different neighborhood. So that's something that happens on a regular basis. That's surplus. But then governments have been more and more, especially with the recession, they've become the owner of distressed properties. So vacant lots, abandoned houses, foreclosed upon.
Certainly we've seen a lot of that in Providence, the Central Falls around here.
Exactly. So they become the owners, the caretakers, and their next task is actually getting rid of it and giving it back to the private sector. And that's something that, that's one reason why we have land banks, redevelopment authorities, revitalization authorities. Those are all kind of government entities whose job is to help take these properties that have been distressed and put them back on the market.
And yet, a recent New York Times article about your project, which is really cool that you've already had that kind of publicity, the Times said, quote, managing and marketing their real estate portfolios is something municipalities are, quote, notoriously deficient at doing. Notoriously deficient. Tough words from the New York Times there. Why is that? Why are they having trouble doing a good job with this?
One, it wasn't their job to begin with, so they've sort of fallen into this position. It used to not be such a big deal, but when the recession hit, they suddenly became responsible for a lot more. So, and the structure of government hasn't exactly kept up. So that's a good reason why, and some of the bad reasons why. Is that technology, government's not really great at keeping up with the latest technology. As much as they try, they're usually about 10 years behind the private sector. So they're right on track. Corporate asset management, where corporations, like companies like Target and Walmart, they own a lot of property too, and they've only in the past decade really gotten a hold of their inventory.
Sure, yeah. People don't think of them that way, but Target is a massive landowner because of all the stores dotted all over the country.
Yeah, so governments, city governments in particular, also have this, they're now the owner of many more properties, and so just now they're thinking about what does government asset management look like, and what's the responsible stewardship of that mean. So now technology, my company, is coming in and providing a solution for that.
And you're test driving it, working on it right here in Rhode Island. I should disclose, the Rhode Island Foundation, sponsor of this show, is one of your partners in that
Yes.
work, but this is interesting regardless of who they're involved with. But tell me, why Rhode Island? Why did you decide, or how did it come about that this was a good place to test drive what you're working on?
One, it's just down the road. We're based in Boston, Massachusetts at the Harvard Innovation Lab. And one thing I was really interested in testing, we're doing a pilot program. So we've been in operation for a year, and Louisville, Kentucky was our very first client. But what we wanted to test in our pilot program was, well, we have this technology, we believe it can be useful to any number of cities and towns, but is there a limit to how small they can be? And different economic conditions of cities. So we're interested in testing our product and seeing, one, whether we could sell it, and two, whether it would be useful to people within the city governments themselves at these different scales. So Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls, and the town of Cumberland all represent very different kinds of realities. So that's something we really wanted to understand better. And one reason why we're doing what we do is because the way governments sell property is different across different municipalities. It's not the same. You might be familiar with, you might be a Boston developer, you might know Boston, but you certainly don't know how to walk into.
Yeah, you can't take your knowledge of Boston selling property and just bring it to Providence because it's a whole different system down here.
It's a whole different world down here.
So I think we actually have some video we can give people a sense of what the website looks like that you have. But how does it work? Tell people, so let's say I'm a developer, for example. How would I go? You can see it there, how this website works. What would I be going here and doing with this site as I get on there?
Well, one, you can select your city, and it's pulling up the map now, and what we've done is we've mapped the entire inventory of within the municipality of government-owned property. And what's at the very top with a red banner called Opportunities, those are the properties that government has designated for sale. And there's a couple different ways that they sell properties, but that way you can see, one, what is it that they own, and then what is it that they're actively trying to
So it's not
market.
just a list of everything they're selling, it's a list of everything they own, some of which they're not selling?
Right. But every person has a price, every property has a price. So theoretically, if you, just because they haven't designated it for sale doesn't mean they're not interested in learning about demand. So we make it possible when you go to a parcel profile, this is a parcel profile, who to contact is right on the same page. All the information we've collected across different data sets, across different departments and that kind of thing is aggregated in one place. So if the property is for sale, one, you know who to talk to. If they've done any assessments of the property or if there's an RFP out, it's all in one location. And one of the services we offer, which I really like, is you don't have to visit our site every day. That's most of the time when a city issues an RFP, most people don't hear about it.
Sure.
They don't know about it. But you can sign up for an alert on a specific property on our website. So if a status of a property changes, you can get an alert right in your email inbox instead of having to follow whatever it is the city used. They might put it in your local newspaper. And that's usually the limit of what cities do to market their property.
Where'd you get the idea?
Well, my background's actually in community development. And I met my co-founder, Alex Kapoor, at graduate school. We went to school at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. And his background's in government transparency. So it was government transparency and community development. And something I didn't know when I went to Harvard was that governments own so much property. I didn't know that at all. I went to school to learn more about policy.
Sure.
And so to learn that governments, one, they're the largest owner of real estate in the country. And two, they don't know what they own. So we found this out, very disturbing fact out during our thesis when we were interviewing cities across the country about their process, and most of them couldn't tell us what they didn't know what they owned. They'd never seen it all together in one place. So that's one reason why we started off showing the entire inventory.
Just to make them put together a list of what they have. So we only have about a minute left. Tell me, are people using it so far? What's the response been?
Yeah, it's been great. So so far in Rhode Island, so just to give you some context, we have 2,400 properties listed in the 4 cities that we're in Rhode Island, and 450 of those are for sale. And the majority of those are in Providence. But so the number of users that we have over 1,000 people following us in social media and on our newsletter. And so you can sign up for that on our website.
What's the URL?
OpportunitySpace.org.
Perfect.
And in addition to that, you can register as a user. This gives you this, access to the services I described before, like being able to receive alerts, contact the owner directly. And we have over 900 users today.
That's great. Well, we'll be keeping track of what you do. Thank you so much, Cristina, for being with us. And thank you for tuning in this week on Executive Suite. Be sure to join us next week when our guest will be Tim Hebert from Atrion Networking Solutions. See you next week here on Executive Suite.